Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is training, and we're going to discuss how to have both consistency and creativity in your training. So I had someone reach out and they had asked about the idea of conjugate training, which is a training style made famous by Louis Simmons of Westside Barbell. And conjugate training is typically thought of for powerlifters. However, you can actually use that system for bodybuilding, for training athletes, for pretty much any training goal. There's kind of just a general structure to it, and how you apply that structure within the rules of the structure allows you to address different sports. So, what I wanted to do today was kind of to introduce the concept of creating something consistent enough in your training that you can track your progress, but still having variety and openness in your training to allow for creativity, to allow for things to change and flow, for you to kind of pick and choose movements and not always feel stuck. And the reason why I wanted to introduce this was in the next kind of training video podcast, I'm planning on talking about conjugate method for powerlifting, and then I want to make another one after that about conjugate method for bodybuilding. So I wanted to kind of, before I made a podcast that had the title of conjugate training for bodybuilding and have my bodybuilders not know what the hell I was talking about, I wanted to kind of make this introductory podcast so that way now, if they listen to this one, when they see the next one for bodybuilding, they'll know a little bit more about the background of it and what the idea of it is. So the idea is, how do we have enough consistency in our training to know we're making progress? But how do we have enough variety so we don't feel kind of stuck and formed into a box and kind of pinned down? So myself, in my way of training, ever since I started lifting weights when I was 16 years old, I'm 35 now, about to turn 36 in a month or so, 2 months. I've been training for 19 years, and I absolutely hate having stuff pre-programmed and scripted to the point where I have like everything in the workout has to be done exactly the way it's written. For me, I've always had I guess it would be like ADHD for training. Is I hated kind of having something predetermined, because for me, training was something I found really exciting, found therapeutic. I loved the creativity and the freedom behind it. So it's how I find kind of like emotional freedom, like emotional health, mental health, all that stuff. So if I came in one day and I was kind of pissed off at the world and wanted to punch everybody in the face, I wanted to train in a way that allowed me to feel that I got to release that or to vent that frustration. Whereas some days I came into the gym, I'm just having fun. I'm kind of BSing with friends. I just want to have fun, maybe doing an hour of biceps. Who gives a shit? Just have fun and enjoy the session. Some days I felt miserable and I didn't really want to be there, so I just wanted to kind of do 20, 30 minutes and leave. So I always wanted workouts and training to be a therapeutic release for me as much as it was a physical benefit. So for that to happen, what I felt was needed was freedom. The ability to change and modify how I wanted to each day. Now, there is difference per people. So between different people, that was important for me. And I also was very passionate about learning physical fitness and exercise and everything. So ever since I was 16 years old, it's all I've ever done. I used to come home from school, download a video on our dial-up internet. So it would take probably like 2 or 3 hours to download like a 20-minute video, which was ridiculous. But I would watch a 20-minute video about, it was a video series called In the Iron Asylum by RX Muscle. And they were kind of workouts of professionals. So Dave Palumbo, the owner of RX Muscle, would interview the person and kind of film them doing their workout. So I loved it because I got to see new exercises. Like I got to hear their opinion and their words and kind of like their viewpoint on the exercises and the workout in general. So I would go downstairs into my basement and try to mimic it as much as I could. I also got magazines at the time every single month when they came out. I would read them cover to cover and try everything that was in the magazine experiment. So it was something I did for passion and for fun. So I'd go to school, I'd play like my after school activity sport. I'd have dinner with my parents, and then I'd run downstairs and pretty much spend 2 or 3 hours working out. So that was my entire life when I was like 16 and 17. And then my senior year of high school, I actually quit all my sport activities so I could just go home and work out. So it's something I've always been passionate about. And I've wanted to take the mental effort and time to learn these exercises and learn how to put in new things. Now, if somebody is exercising and maybe they love it, maybe they hate it, but excuse me, sorry, but they like having a guided script. So they like being just told what to do. They have enough things they think about all day. They just want to come in, follow the paper, and leave. Or they like working out. They just don't know enough, and they're kind of too busy, or they haven't been around the gym long enough to create their own creativity. So for people like that, having something pre-scripted by like a programmer or a coach or a magazine or a website or something like that is helpful, because they know they can get a good workout in, and they're still learning all the basic movements, so it still feels kind of new for them, but it's also not overwhelming. So by having something on paper, they don't feel overwhelmed with having to create everything themselves. So there are people who benefit from structure. Now, for people like that in this podcast, I want you to learn that that is okay, totally fine, but you have to have some variety within that structure. So I'll talk a little bit about how I program for my clients, and that'll give you an idea here a little bit later in the podcast. So in general, what we're going to look for is in your programming, you will have categories of kind of things you need to address in your workouts. So for example, for bodybuilding, you might have some type of movement prep or warm-up, okay, where it's not really anything that's causing muscular damage. It's not intended to be used for growth. It's just something that kind of gets some blood flow into the joints, kind of warms up the muscles for the day. So you'll have some type of movement prep. You'll then have either a priming or pre-exhaust type movement, or at least I think you should. So we have a podcast in the past about priming and pre-exhaust and the benefits of it, and why I think you should definitely have that element in your workouts if you're doing bodybuilding or aesthetic-based training. So that's podcast 334, titled Priming versus Pre-Exhaust. Now, I have coached people to pro cards in aesthetic sports, okay, in different categories. So I do have pretty good experience with how to program for best aesthetic results. And my experience and people smarter than me have all agreed that some form of priming or pre-exhaust every single workout is a fantastic idea. So you want to check out podcast 334. So if you're doing aesthetics, you should have some type of movement prep, some type of priming or pre-exhaust method for that day. You'll then have your main kind of movement of the day. Then you'll have your secondary movements. So that's pretty much how a bodybuilding workout is going to go. You have movement prep, priming, pre-exhaust, main movement, secondary movements. So we'll go through more examples later on. If you're into strength training, say powerlifting, you're going to have movement prep. You'll have your main movement like squat, bench, deadlift, stuff like that. Then you'll have your accessories. So that's kind of the structures that you guys have. So those are categories that we know have to be addressed in our training. So you can add or subtract or change. Maybe you want to add an endurance factor. So you might add muscle cardio or some type of endurance at the end of the workout. Maybe you're, instead of just being a powerlifter, maybe you're a strength-based athlete. So you're going to have maybe some type of agility-based stuff, maybe mobility-based stuff. But you're going to have categories that you need to address in your workout. So those need to be written down, kind of set in stone. Make sure you have those addressed. Now you can reanalyze them every month, add to them, take them away, but you want to make sure that that category itself is addressed in some way. Then you want to create a rotation cycle for each of those categories, meaning how often are you going to change the exercise or the drill or the movement of that category. So again, in this aesthetic-based training, so say bodybuilding, bikini, fitness, figure, physique, all those categories, wellness is now a category. So in those type categories, maybe for your movement prep, so what you're going to kind of use at the beginning of, say, every leg day to just kind of get your hips and knees warmed up, get the joints going, maybe you're going to do the same drill every leg day for the next 4 weeks. So maybe for this month, you'll do the same leg drill, and then maybe next month you'll swap it out, maybe see if there's something different you want to try. So you might have a 4-week cycle. Then for your priming and pre-exhaust, those are typically going to be alternated every other workout. So one workout, you're going to do a priming movement before your main movement. The next workout, you're going to do a pre-exhaust movement before your main movement. So in those cases, if you do priming, that's going to be every other workout, and then pre-exhaust will be the workouts in between. So workout 1, 3, 5, 7, blah, 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 is priming. Workouts 2, 4, 6, 8, blah, 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 is pre-exhaust. So maybe you're going to have it every other workout for 4 weeks. So maybe you train that body part twice a week. So I'm just making up days, say Monday and Thursday. So Monday is priming. So for 4 weeks in a row, you're going to use the same priming movement. Maybe on Thursdays, you're going to do pre-exhaust. And for 4 weeks in a row, you're going to use the same pre-exhaust movement. So it's every other workout for 4 weeks. Now, within those 4 weeks, if it's priming and pre-exhaust, you might make some progressions in terms of time under tension or kind of the stress in which that exercise creates. Because week 1 versus week 4, if you do it 4 times in a row, the body gets a little bit accustomed to it, or it can kind of start to predict a little bit. So you maybe have some type of progression, but you're going to keep the same movement. Then maybe your main movement, okay, you're going to again keep for maybe 4 weeks. So maybe for chest, you're doing 15-degree dumbbell incline press. Okay, and that's going to be your main movement. And maybe you're doing 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps, then 2 sets of 12 to 14 reps. I'm just making up stuff. So say that's your main chest movement. You're going to keep that for 4 weeks in a row, try to progress in reps and or weight within those ranges. But then your secondary movements, you can change every week. So maybe after your 15-degree incline dumbbell presses, you want to do some type of fly. Well, 1 week it can be cable crossovers. Next week it can be dumbbell flies, maybe done at a flat angle. Maybe the next week you can do a machine fly. Maybe the 4th week you can come back and do maybe another dumbbell movement, but at a different angle. So maybe week 2 is flat flies. Maybe week 4 is 30-degree incline flies. So your secondary movements, you may choose to have variety. Maybe change them up. And the reason why this is helpful is we know that the dumbbell incline press, the 15-degree dumbbell incline press, your main movement, we know, we know the main movement will be consistent enough that we can see if we're having increases in our performance for 4 weeks in a row. And then with the secondary movements, we know if we're in the correct time under tension ranges and we go to good form failure, we know we're going to get growth effects from that. We don't necessarily have to track every single exercise of the workout. As long as each week our dumbbells are improving, that means our accessories are probably doing us good. So that allows you some creativity, so that way you can mess around with flies. Maybe you've never done dumbbell floor flies. So you're like, hey, you know what? I saw those in a video this week on YouTube. I thought they were pretty cool. Let me go ahead and try them. So if you're always structured in a program, and say you do the traditional bodybuilding model of like an 8 to 12 week, even 16-week program, you're not going to get to try those dumbbell floor flies for maybe another 2 or 3 months. Why not allow yourself the freedom to try fun new things today? So that's the idea of this type of structure, is we know the categories are movement prep, priming, pre-exhaust, then you have your main movement, then your secondary movements. So if you address or kind of like assign a rotation cycle per category, you can have some consistency with, say, the main movement being the same for 4 weeks. But then you can have some creativity by switching up your secondary movement every single week. So if you look at this at powerlifting, there's some other options. There's more options in bodybuilding and aesthetic-based training. I'm just trying to give quick examples. So in powerlifting, you may have your movement prep, and again, maybe you're going to do the same movement prep for 4 weeks in a row on the same workout. So every lower body workout maybe has the same kind of movement prep. Every upper body workout has the same movement prep. You're going to do those same ones for 4 weeks, then reassign and reanalyze if you want to change things up. Now, you could create your creativity there, by the way. So within your movement prep itself, you can say, okay, what does this movement prep need to address? If I'm doing a movement prep and say every single workout I want to address something for posture, I want to address something for my hip health, and I want to address something for my core. So, okay, you can just use those categories and then plug and play different movements each week. So you can create the creativity and the variety within just your movement prep if you want it. So you don't have to have that even structured every 4 weeks. That can create variety. Then your main movement, you can maybe choose in one example to change your main movement every single week for 4 weeks. So maybe week 1 you do barbell paused squats. Maybe week 2 you do barbell squats with a reverse banding, bands from the top of the rack. Maybe week 3 you do regular banding, bands from the bottom of the rack. Then maybe week 4 you do regular barbell squats again, but without a pause, so that way you can just see like how if you're getting stronger. So you're going to create a 4-week wave like that, and then maybe the next cycle, the next 4 weeks, you'll do the exact same movements but try to progress. So maybe week 1 in the first 4-week cycle, you did paused squats for say 5x5. Okay. Maybe in the next cycle, you're going to try 5x5 with heavier weight, or maybe you're going to try the same weight, do 5 sets, but maybe you can get 6 or 7 reps on the first 2 or 3 sets, and then 5 to 6 reps on the last couple sets. So you progress in reps. So you can progress in reps, or you can progress in weight, whichever kind of way you want to push your progressions. So if you progress in reps, you're more likely to progress in physical size, okay? Whereas if you progress in weight, you're more likely to progress in physical strength. So you can choose, do I want to build mass from this movement to give me strength in the long run, or do I want to build strength with the mass I have now? So it depends on the size, the muscular size you are at that moment and where you're at in your weight class. So that's one example, is having it change for each week for 4 weeks, but then cycle through the same ones for the next 4 weeks. Another example for how to handle your main movements is to make 4 weeks consistent. So maybe you're going to do pause squats for 4 weeks in a row. And you're just going to focus on a little bit of weight increase or a little bit of rep increase every single week. You're going to do that for a month. Then maybe the next month you go to reverse banded squats. Then the next month, you go to regular banded squats. Then the next month you come back and do regular squats. Okay? So you can use the same 4 exercises, but you can cycle them 4 weeks at a time. The benefit to doing the exact same movement 4 weeks in a row is it allows you to improve your technique. Whereas with the first example, if you're changing the movement every single week, you are changing a little bit of the technique execution. So if somebody still is very new to the proper technique of a movement, you don't want to change the movement every single week. You would rather stick with the same movement for 4 weeks in a row, allow them to improve their technique, and stay focused in on that exact movement. So then your accessories will be the complementary. So if you picked to have your main movement change every week, you're then going to have consistent accessories every week. So you pick the opposite. If you change to have consistent main movement, you can have changing every week accessories. So you kind of flip-flop. So if one's constant, the other one's creative. If one's creative, the other one's constant. So that way you're always tracking something for progression to make sure you're getting stronger, but then you also have that freedom in your training to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. So those are some ideas. So let's look at, for example, a bench workout. So how does this look like if we kind of talk about categories of things? So if I look at a bench workout, I typically like to have my clients, after they do their movement prep, okay, this is going to be for strength, by the way. So like a power if they're trying to increase their bench press. So after they do their movement prep, I like having them do some back exercises before they bench press. And the reason why is because on most people, their back is weak. So it's good to prioritize it. Also, if you sensitize their back, it makes them more aware of back tightness and lat tightness, okay, in the bench press. So if I have them do something for their thoracic spine, their mid-back area, so in between the rhomboids, in between the shoulder blades, so maybe I'll have them do a horizontal type shrug, or I'll have them do, like maybe either shrug on a chest-supported row machine, shrug with dumbbells. Maybe they can even do a shrug on the seated cable row. So instead of a vertical shrug, maybe they'll do a horizontal shrug. Then I have them pair that like a superset with something for their lats or their overall back development. So that could be lat pull downs with various grips, and you can even throw in eccentrics or isometrics. You can also do pull ups with various grips and eccentrics and isometrics and even dead hangs. So I typically have them do something for the thoracic spine mid-back area right between their shoulder blades, which can be a horizontal shrug or even a row, if making sure they squeeze their back and not just use their damn arms. So then you have lats or overall back development. So that's usually in the vertical plane, so pull-ups or pull-downs. So you have a horizontal back movement, a row or shrug. Then you have a vertical back movement, which is a lat pull-down or pull-up. So you have them do that before they bench press. So if I have those categories addressed, I can pick and choose any movement I want. So for the mid-back movement, like I said, maybe week 1, you have them do dumbbell shrugs laying on a 30-degree incline bench. Week 2, you have them do shrugs on a chest-supported row machine. Week 3, maybe you have them on a seated cable row, but you have them using a lat pull-down bar, like a really wide overhand grip, almost like the bench press position, and they do shrugs in that position. Maybe week 4, you have them use a narrow neutral handle, and they do shrugs with that. So they can even do horizontal shrugs off of a low pulley on a cable. But you can switch which movement you want because you know what category needs addressed. So by having the categories, it allows you the choice to have creativity, or you can have them do the same exercise 4 weeks in a row, depending on what you feel like yourself or your client or whoever you're programming for, what you feel is best for you. So if you feel overwhelmed with a lot of variety, just pick the same movement for 4 weeks in a row that fits that category. If you like having creativity, or if you see a cool video on social media and you want to give it a try, then you plug it where it fits. So then after bench press, maybe we have some type of chest press movement. They have then some type of heavy tricep compound movement. Then they have biceps, then maybe they have front delts. So for chest press, it can be dumbbells at any angle. It can be a machine. You can even mess around with like wide grip or close grip barbell benching with bands, top or bottom, or chains, or even specialty bars like an angled football bar or a neutral grip bar or a fat bar. You can change up a lot of variety within that. Okay, and it all fits a chest press. So you can do tricep compound movement, which can be rolling dumbbell tricep extensions. It can be dips. It can be a whole bunch of variety of stuff. So that gives you options there. You can then do biceps in any freaking way you want to do biceps. So that gives you a really fun, cool option. And then you have front delts. So those can be like dumbbell raises, cable raises. You can do palms neutral or palms down. But that's the idea, is if I'm a strength athlete wanting to build my bench press, I can have my workout structured with these categories. So I do movement prep, then I do a superset of back movements, with one being a horizontal movement, one being a vertical movement. I then do my bench press. And then after bench press, my accessories are a chest press, a tricep compound, bicep, and front delt. You can do them separated, or you can do them as a superset, or even as a circuit. So by having these structures known and then having the categories defined, you can then have enormous variety of workouts. So with just this one structure of bench workout, you can do a different bench workout every single bench day for a year. So I could create 100 different workouts. And by the way, I've done this for clients, so I actually know that that's factual. That's not even being exaggerated. So I've worked out with somebody before. We did chest twice a week because they were a bodybuilder and they wanted to build their chest. And in a year, we did over 100 different workouts. Okay, so we met twice a week for a year. So that would have been like 104 type workouts. Never did the exact same workout. So we literally did over 100 different workouts, okay, for chest. So by knowing these structures, it allows you to have enormous variety. That variety can be overwhelming. So therefore, don't change things every week. Change them every month. Okay? Or if you love the creativity of this, you can change whatever of the elements you want to change from week to week. So the key is you have to have something consistent. So in this structure I gave you, I talked about the accessory movements. So after the movement prep, I said you would do back. And then you would do bench press, then you would do your accessories. So if I'm always changing the back movements, if I'm always changing my accessories, my chest press, my tricep compound, my bicep, and my front delt, then I have to make sure I have consistent bench pressing. So I might have the exact same style bench press for 4 weeks in a row. And that'll allow me to have more creativity in my accessories. If I want to change my bench press variation every week, then I have to have these accessories be consistent. Something has to be consistent so you can track progress. And then that allows you to then have other things be creative, okay? So one more quick example, and in my mind these are quick, so I'm sorry if they're overwhelming, but I'm trying to talk fast and not bore you guys to death. So another example would be, say, a back workout for somebody needing mid-back thickness. So aesthetic athlete, they need to fill in their mid-back. So they might have decent width, or they don't want width. So if you're a female and you don't want really wide lats, you just want a bunch of detail to the mid-back. Or if you're a male, you already have decent lats and you want detail to the mid-back. So a good workout structure would be to superset, again, that horizontal shrug with some type of non-low back dependent row, meaning you're going to do a type of row that doesn't annihilate your lower back. So it can't be a barbell bent over row, can't be T-bar row, stuff like that. It has to be something that's controlled for the lower back. That can be a chest supported row, that can be a cable seated row because you have your foot support on the seat, on the foot plate, so that gives you support. So it can be any kind of row machine if you want to. So they're going to do a superset of mid-back shrugs, a horizontal shrug. And we went through and we already said that can be, dumbbell shrugs laying on a 15 or 30 or 45 degree incline bench. You can also do shrugs on a chest-supported row. You can do shrugs on a cable-seated row with a variety of different handles. So you can really, really, really change that up. There's probably dozens of ways to do a horizontal shrug. But what that does is that pre-exhausts the mid-back. You're then going to go into a regular type row that we would already normally think of, which would be, maybe seal rows, which is a dumbbell chest supported row. You can do a chest supported row machine. You can do the cable seated row. So you're actually going to this time squeeze the mid back, but then also drive the elbows back to flex the rest of the back. So you're going to have arm movement rather than just a shrug type movement where the arms stay consistent. So you're going to do a mid-back shrug into a row as a superset that pre-exhausts the mid-back, so that way the rows that you're doing, if the mid-back is already beat up and damaged, then that row is going to fail, pushing the mid-back to its most extreme. So if you have problems with mid-back development, that probably means that when you do your rows, you're too arm dependent or lat dependent. So you never really fully use up your mid-back because you're busy using all these other muscles. So if you pre-exhaust the mid-back, it'll go into that movement already pre-damaged, and therefore it'll be more likely to get pushed closer to actual failure. So if you've never done this before, do a horizontal shrug, for 30 to 40 seconds of time under tension, and then do a row. A row movement for 30 to 40 seconds time under tension. Your mid-back will hurt like hell. It'll feel like somebody punched you in the back because that's where all the emphasis goes. So we're going to start with a superset in that structure because that's where we want the most growth if we're looking for mid-back detail. Then, to make sure we address the rest of the back, you're going to do a superset of a vertical shrug with a lat pull down or pull up, so a vertical pull. So it's going to be a vertical shrug supersetted with a vertical pull. So this can be dumbbell shrugs, it can be cable shrugs, it can be barbell shrugs, and then you're going to pair that with like a lat pull down or pull up, any kind of grip you want. You're going to do a superset of that. What that does, that takes care of the upper traps, and it's also still going to get a little more mid trap and lower trap as well if you do shrugs correctly. Then by doing a lat pull down or pull up, you're going to use mostly your lats, but there's still a little bit of mid-back involvement when you do those correct as well. But this makes sure that we address the rest of the back as well. And then you're going to finish with a heavy row. And this can be one where the lower back has to help. So it could be barbell bent over row, it could be a dumbbell row. You want to try to have it be something super heavy that just kind of exhausts all the things in the back. So that way it wears out and finishes everything. So having a structure like this allows you to address the biggest concern, the target area, which is mid-back thickness, but you still get overall back development as well. So by having these categories, a superset of a horizontal shrug into a row, then a superset of a vertical shrug into a pull-up or pull-down, and then having a heavy row to finish it off, these are the categories. You can plug and play any exercise you want. You can make any exercise you want consistent. So maybe with the first two supersets, I create any variety I want from week to week, but then I have the heavy row be consistent for 4 weeks in a row. Or I can vice versa all that. You can just make sure that you pick something to be consistent so you can track progress, and then the other ones can be creative. So that's the idea. So the benefits of having both structured but also creative program is that it allows you to experiment and learn. So you can learn over time what feels best for you and develop a library of exercises that best match your movement mechanics and your personality of lifting. So you can best create a program tailored to you by having this type of format, okay? So when I program for clients, I often do things in 4-week waves, and that way it gives them kind of enough where in 4 weeks you're going to get bored, so we switch to new things, but 4 weeks is also enough time to technically learn something new, so they get to practice it enough that they can learn that movement